Albedo is finally getting his rerun with the Traveler's Return to Dragonspine. Albedo is a 5-star Geo Sword user that plays as a high uptime, off-field support. If you haven't made up your mind on pulling for him yet, KQM will let you know if he is worth your Primo Gems. Before you wish. Before You Wish is a video series dedicated to noting the good, bad, and ugly of characters in Genshin Impact. Many aspects of a unit are not apparent to the average Genshin player, even after playing them in the trials, due to the inaccurate testing environment that can make these characters seem better than they truly are. Explicitly noting the pros and cons of these characters in full detail should inform you about how to push them to their highest potential and what it costs to do so. As always, if you enjoy a character for reasons like their voice actor, aesthetic, or personality, these videos are by no means meant to stop you from spending your Primo Gems on them. Instead, they should prepare you for the type of problems that you'll need to solve or work around to meet your gameplay expectations. Without further ado, let's jump straight into Albedo's role on the battlefield. Albedo is an off-field support that shines due to his elemental skill's high uptime while not requiring much field time or any effort to set up. The elemental skill, Abiogenesis Solar Isotoma, is the core of Albedo's identity, in which a geoconstruct in the shape of a flower is placed on the ground. All successful damaging attacks against an enemy within the range of the flower will trigger a bloom-like explosion. This explosion can only occur once every 2 seconds. Overall, the damage and area of effect of his flower explosions are rather limited, but this is made up by the incredible uptime, ease of use, and simplicity to build for. Note that this skill's energy generation is random on every explosion, which becomes a relevant point for our next ability. Albedo's Elemental Burst, Rite of Progenitor, Tectonic Tide, creates an initial explosion, and if a flower from his elemental skill is on the field, he will follow up with 7 blooms randomly spawned within the range of the initial explosion, which then are meant to trigger on top of an enemy if possible. On average, you can expect only 1 to 2 of those blooms to hit the same target unless a large group of enemies are within small proximity of each other, in which case his blooms will spawn closer to each other and become more likely to hit the same target. This skill is generally not necessary to use, and can even be fully neglected as its energy is unreliable and is not worth stacking energy recharge for. Additionally, its damage scaling is not worth building for without Constellation 2. Next we have Albedo's Constellations. None of them are required for him to function to his fullest, but we're going to cover them in case you want to improve his power. Constellation 1, Flower of Eden, restores flat energy to Albedo upon explosions originated from his elemental skill. This helps with his energy deficit, but his elemental burst only becomes a relevant factor to account for with the next constellation. Constellation 2, Opening of Phanerozoic, adds an additional scaling of defense to his elemental burst, allowing for the full defense build taken to maximize his E to bring out even more of his potential. This is the recommended stopping point for Constellations, as this is the most significant one to own. Everything else is very minor. Constellations 3 and 5 will increase the level of his elemental skill and burst respectively by 3 levels, resulting in a 14 and 3% increase of his personal damage over their previous constellations. Constellation 4 will increase the plunge damage of his allies within the range of his elemental skill flower, which increases his value as a support for a character like Zhao. Constellation 6 will increase the damage of the active character if they are within the range of his elemental skill flower and protected by a crystallized shield. So, when should you pull for Albedo? Albedo is a very flexible unit who can be easily slotted into many teams. He is very cheap to build as he seeks defense and crit for his desired stats, allowing him to utilize artifacts that most players would just scrap otherwise. His 2 best weapon options are a free 4-star event weapon coming alongside his banner, Cinnabar Spindle, and a 3-star sword, Harbinger of Dawn. He is a support in a sea of on-field carries. When paired with his common partner Zhongli, they can provide great comfort and geo-resonance. What about Constellations? Should you pull for them if you already own Albedo? Well, most likely not, as their value comes only in a slight push for his own strength, which isn't the priority of his teams. Now, when should you not pull for Albedo? If you're struggling in the Spiral Abyss, Albedo will not likely bridge the difference between clearing floor 12 and achieving 36 stars. Moreover, his potential is more limited than other popular 4 stars once their constellations are unlocked. Though he is very flexible and can be a good slot in many teams, he will not be the best option in any team except for Zhao and Mono Geo compositions. Thanks for watching this overview of the Ketching Main's Theory Crafting staff's thoughts on Albedo. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments, and we'll do our best to answer.